Hello everybody, Shabbat Shalom. Right, as I said, I was going to tell you a couple of things about Paul, but first I think it's important that we understand really what a covenant is and why God made a covenant with certain people on earth. And it is important to understand that God's covenant is not something that should be taken lightly. It is a promise. So if we look at a couple of places in the Bible, like for instance Jeremiah, Isaiah, Ezekiel, Hosea, all of them made mention of this. So I've opted to give you a couple of quotes just so that we can get on the same page as far as what a covenant is concerned. Deuteronomy 7:6 says, "For you are a holy people to the Lord your God. The Lord your God has chosen you to be a people for his own possession out of all the peoples who are on the face of the earth." And then he also says in Isaiah, "For unto us," or Isaiah says that, "For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulder, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, the Mighty God, the Everlasting Father, the Prince of Peace." And just to take a passage out of the New Testament, Luke said, "To perform the mercy promised to our fathers, and to remember his holy covenant." So God made this promise, and he wasn't going to back up on any of these promises. There's nowhere in the Bible that it says that he will rethink his promises to Israel. So these promises are to one family and to the Yahsharel and to the Yahudim. So the big thing that we are facing here is that the Bible, in the New Testament, Paul really actually defies a lot of things that God said, and he is equalizing the Yahudim with gentiles. So really what we are doing on this channel of mine is that we are looking at Revelation from a different perspective, and there are certain things that we need to understand to be able to understand Revelation a bit better. So the first thing that I would like to share with you is in Revelation 2 verse 9 and Revelation 3 verse 9. God said in Revelation 2 verse 9, "I know thy works, and tribulation, and poverty, but thou art rich. I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews, and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan." Then in Revelation 3:9 he says, "Behold, I will make them the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews, and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, and to know that I have loved thee." So if we want to take a deeper look at Paul, we first need to understand that the books of Paul are really not supposed to be in the Bible. And if you think about what happened at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD, they compiled a book translated from Hebrew to Greek in 286 BC, and then a newer version of a Greek Bible in 325 AD published at the Council of Nicaea. And this book included a New Testament. So there's this Professor Bart Ehrman, who is a scholar of the New Testament, and he criticizes and does some translations, and he's working actively in the field of the New Testament. He does a lot of critic, and one of the things that he said in the translation, or in the work that he did on the book of Judas, which he made the statement, he said, although they are placed in the middle of the New Testament, Paul's letters were the first of the New Testament books to be written. In fact, they are the earliest Christian writings that we have of any kind whatsoever. And this is taken from the Lost Gospel of Judas Iscariot by Bart D. Ehrman on page 14. So, if we're looking at Paul, then we will see many things that he did wrong, but I've taken out a couple and to try and show you that his deception is towards annihilating the Yahudim, towards equalizing the Jews with everybody else, in contrast to what God said. So he's a self-appointed preacher. He said in 2 Timothy 2:11, he said, whereunto I am appointed a preacher, an apostle, and a teacher of the Gentiles. Now, I don't know if many of you realize that it is quite significant that we need to know what is the difference between a Gentile and the Israelites. So, when earth was in the early development stages of this present paradigm of consciousness that we are in, there basically are three types of homo creatures on earth, and we have one category which really stands together and one category which stands alone. So we have Homo sapiens, and there we have two categories. We have Homo sapiens and Homo sapiens sapien, which sapien means clever. But we also have Homo erectus, which would refer to what is known as the beast of the field, or beasts, or robust creatures. And they were prolific in those days too. We had them helping us as servants in farmlands and things like that. So they were part of our scene already many years prior to having all of these scriptures and things. But they've always been a part of our lives. So now it is important to know that the difference between the ones that are known as the Son of Man and the ones that are known as the Gentiles. So I think previously I've explained that Gentiles are the Homo sapiens who have melanin saturated with carbon, which have brown eyes, and really they are creatures or homos that evolved on earth, but they are not part of creation. Now I know it's very difficult to hear these kind of things, and we've been largely shunned for what we need to say, but the truth is the truth. And if you look at humanity, you will see that there are really two very distinct types of people on planet Earth, and they are the brown-eyed and blue-eyed people. So as far as what is the Gentiles is concerned, they have to be a different crowd to what the Yahsharel are. So the way to identify them is through the blue eyes. And like I've said to you before, it's a very difficult thing to say, because we don't really want to make this segregation, because we've grown up with a Bible that that teaches Paul and teaches no segregation, which is the reason why I'm standing here talking about Paul today. Now, Paul made some statements about the Yahudim, the Jews, that I don't quite honestly believe that he really understood what he was saying himself. Like in some instances, he would equalize the Gentiles with the Jews, and then in some instances he would put them separate, and as if he didn't really know where he should fit them. So firstly, to understand a little bit about Paul. Paul was seemingly a little bit influenced by the Sadducees and the Pharisees, and he was studying their law, and he really tried to equalize everybody, or put everybody in the same category as the Yahudim. Acts 10:28. And he said unto them, You know how that it is unlawful for a man that is a Jew to keep company or come unto one of another nation. But God has showed me that I should not call any man uncommon or unclean. Now, really what Paul is saying here is that he was told that everybody is the same. And this is really what the word Catholic refers to, is that Catholic refers to it being for universal or for everyone. Now, when he decided to go to Jerusalem, they said to him, you shouldn't go there because the Jews think differently to you and they will kill you. Which was the case. He came into Jerusalem, he was accused in Acts 24:5. It was said that we have found this man to be a pestilent fellow and a mover of sedition among the Jews throughout the world, and a ringleader of the sect of the Nazarene. So what happened then is he tried to make himself as part of the furniture, I would presume, and he started going to the synagogues, and they found him there and they arrested him and they wanted to kill him. In Acts 26:21, he says, For these causes the Jews caught me in the temple and went about to kill me. And then in Romans, well, the reason why they felt like that is because he was really telling them that they were not God's favorites or God's special family, and they were not the chosen one, and that everyone was the same. And they'd already had taken a lot of strain because of what was happening with regard to the Masons that came into Israel and into Jerusalem and started building and trading in Jerusalem, even on Shabbat. So they were already a little bit uptight about invaders from other families, and he was specifically from the area that the Masons originally came from. In Romans, he says there is no difference between a Greek and a Jew. He says because the same Lord is over all of them. What was lost in 286 BC was the fact that the Bible was actually given to the offspring of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So the Bible was very specific in addressing a specific family, which changed at 286 BC because the Romans had taken over the area. They moved in. They were boss of everything. They came in and created certain laws and certain rules, and they brought in a Catholic religion, or a religion for everyone, and one that included everyone and didn't make anything special about the Yahudim and the Yahsharel. One of the fundamental things that the Romans did, I think it's Caesar here in 44 BC, to Romanize the world, he brought in a system of citizenship. And this was to be able to bring the defeated people into his realm of control. So he said to them, either you leave or I will give you citizenship in my country, and if you take citizenship, then you have to stick to the rules that I give you. And the rules that I give you are the rules that we are still living by today, because we are still living in a Roman controlled world. You might not believe that, but it is very much so. And the rules that came in kind of replaced the rules that God set as the commandments of earth. So with the Roman citizenship changed many things, and Paul was he was actually from the tribe of Benjamin, and he was a Sanhedrin, and also au fait with the Pharisees. He actually studied under Pharisee law, and he managed to get himself heard by the Yahudim, who had rejected him, and they eventually cut him some slack, because there was court cases going on, and they cut him some slack, and he was allowed to state his case. So what he said is, we who are Jews by nature and not sinners of the Gentiles, knowing that a man is not justified in the works of the law, but by faith in Jesus Christ. Even we have believed in Jesus Christ, that we might be justified by the faith in Christ, and not by the works of the law. For by the works of the law shall no flesh be justified. Then he's also made a statement in Hebrews 8:13. He makes a statement as well, which is a bit of a concern, because this is why I was telling you about a covenant in the beginning. Paul makes a statement in Hebrews 8:13. In that he saith, a new covenant he has made the first old. Now that which decayeth and waxed old is ready to vanish away. So what he's really saying is that God made a new covenant with the Yahsharel, and this new covenant is to include everybody into the family of God. So that is not true, because when after he was given some leeway and allowed to speak, then he said in Acts 22, 1-3, men, brethren, and fathers, hear ye my defense, which I make now unto you. And when they heard him spake in the Hebrew tongue, and them, they kept the more silence. And he said, I am verily a man which am a Jew, born in Tarsus, a city in Cilicia, yet brought up in this city at the feet of Gamaliel, and taught according to the perfect manner of the law of the fathers, and was zealous towards God. And ye all are, as ye all are this day. So it's strange. It points back at a certain point. So when you take those words into consideration, and you hear that he said that he was well versed in the law, and that he understood everything about how the Jews work and everything, which is not evident because he didn't really do the Yahudim any justice by comparing them with Gentiles. So now remember, he's already claimed that he was appointed to be a preacher to the Gentiles, not to the Yahudim, but he included the Yahudim in everything he did because he saw them as exactly the same as everyone. Now in a later episode I'm going to tell you what makes them really special and different to the others. So with the law and the Pharisees, they were already advocates and already well versed in their civil law, and this law was obviously the law that would take over the laws that God set on earth, as is evident today in the Roman Catholic Church. I mean, if you think about it, God said no gays, and these days even our country now have gay marriages, and they are totally open to homosexuality, which God despises. And you know, sometimes it's difficult for me to talk about these things, but and I know how everybody thinks about it, but the reality is that God does not like that. God will punish us for that. And if our countries are pro homosexuality, then we are not in the good books of God now, are we? So I don't know how you feel about that, but certainly I think it is a problem in society. There are reasons for these problems, and I've gone to take a deeper look into why that really actually exists, and there are explanations, but I will get to that at a later stage. So there was a during these trials that Paul was having, there was a Pharisee who stood up, and he was a doctor of the law, and he was protecting. His name was Gamaliel. It's written in Acts 5:34. Then stood there up one in the council, a Pharisee named Gamaliel, a doctor of the law, had in reputation among all the people, and commanded to put the apostles forth a little space. So when Paul equalizes the Yahudim and the Israelites with Gentiles and common man, what he's really doing is he's saying to God that God is wrong, and God doesn't really know what he's talking about, and he has the better way, which I think is going to cause him some judgment. But nevertheless, surely he was aware of that when he made those statements. And you know, at this point in time, I think that we need to face the fact that the world is really a bit sick right now. And this probably because the ones in control are really selfish people, and they were described as being selfish from the very start. So now maybe I should take a deeper look into one of the mistakes that Paul made that really puts him in a bad light, firstly with me. In Galatians 4 verse 28 to 29, he says, "There is neither Jew nor Greek, there is neither bond nor free, there is neither male nor female, for ye are all one in Christ Jesus. And if ye be Christ's, then ye be Abraham's seed, and heirs according to the promise." Then also in Hebrews 11:17 and 18, "By faith Abraham, when he was tried, offered up Isaac, and he that had received the promises offered up his only begotten son, of whom it was said that in Isaac shall thy seed be called. Well, this is incorrect, because Abraham had a son before Isaac. So if Paul was so well versed in the biblical things, then how did he not know about Ishmael, which was the son of Hagar, which Sarah gave to him? And then he carries on to mention that we are, if that was the firstborn, then we are all of that, which is also another lie, because we are not all of the same gene, because there were many other people in that point in time, and it can't be all the same. It's just not possible. So for him to make a statement like that is real true deception. Well, making two statements like that is really showing that he's a little bit ignorant about, firstly, who he is, and secondly, that he's defying God by saying that God is wrong. Now, Abraham had a second son who was Ishmael, and he was the firstborn. But it didn't stop there. Isaac might have been the second-born, but Abraham had many other children. He, for instance, had a son called Midian, who came after Isaac, but eventually he got tired of all his kids, and he gave them a lot of treasure and sent them on their way. And Midian went down to the area of Ethiopia, and he started a kingdom there, and a tribe called the Midianites. Now, the Midianites actually rendered Moses' wife. She was a Midianite, and her father was a rabbi who was the son of Midian. So you can read about this in, I think it's in Yahsharel as well. But nevertheless, the fact that Abram had many other children is written in history, and if Paul didn't know that, then Paul really didn't go very deeply into knowing the family of the Israelites. So just to prove to you that Abram had these kids, there are two passages. Genesis 16:11 states about Hagar, and Hagar bare Abraham a son, and Abram called his son's name, which Hagar bore, or bare, Ishmael. In the book of Yahsharel 26, number 20, he says, and all the children of Abraham's concubines went to dwell in the land of the east, for Abram had sent them away from his son, which is Isaac now, and had given them presents, and they went away. So this is where it comes from, and if you go and read there, that you'll see that Midian was the neighbor of the Cushites. Now, this is where it gets very difficult, because with Paul stating that there's a new covenant, he's basically saying that God is going to break his promises with the Israelites. And this is really not the case. I mean, he made a promise, and he said that in those days that he will raise a stem from David, and he will be the ruler. So what is the case? So now, what do we face as far as what these promises are concerned, and what Paul did? Well, firstly, he caused the Israelites to think differently about their purity and who they were. He gave them different rules, like, for instance, the rule that says to honor your parents is a rule that is set to keep humanity pure, to keep our family line pure, and to keep our genes pure. So if we are blue-eyed, we need to remain blue-eyed by marrying into blue-eyed families, at the very least. But it's a little bit deeper than that, which I will explain in one of the next episodes. I think what I'll do next time is I'll talk a little bit about the 144,000 which is mentioned in Revelation, seeing as we kind of trying to lay out a little bit of a clarity on the book of Revelation. I will explain about the 144,000 which are said to be eligible for redemption, and it might be worth thinking about the whole situation that we find ourselves in, being 8 billion people on the planet, of which only 144,000 will be redeemed. And Christianity has this mindset that everybody will be taken off the planet. But the reason why they need to be taken off is what I will discuss with you probably in the next episode. We'll go work our way through Revelation so that you understand where everything fits in and how it all works together. I thank you very much for listening, taking the time to listen, and I hope it's been a little bit more insightful, and that you realize that Paul isn't what he claims to be. He was not even a Jew. So if Revelation says that it is blasphemous to call yourself a Jew if you are not, then it is important to know who a Jew is. Thanks for taking the time to listen, and I'll see you next week. Goodbye.